Did you know that the face of immigration in the U.S. is changing fast? It's not just about crossing borders anymore. It's about where people are coming from and why. Mexico still tops the list, but countries like El Salvador, India, and Guatemala are catching up quickly. Ever wondered why so many are making this journey? Is it for a better life, or are they escaping something worse? The answers might surprise you. Stick around to find out which 15 countries are sending the most undocumented immigrants to the U.S. You might be surprised by who's on the list. The world stage is constantly shifting, with numerous significant events unfolding globally. Today, we delve into a particularly compelling aspect of international dynamics, the changing landscape of immigration to the United States. While discussions often center on border crossings, the deeper story lies in the origins of these migrants and the complex reasons compelling them to leave their homes. Understanding these shifts is crucial for grasping the current socio-political climate. We will explore the top 15 countries contributing to the undocumented immigrant population in the U.S., examining the factors driving this migration. Prepare for some surprising revelations. We'll present detailed findings and draw conclusions at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Before we dive deeper, we kindly ask you to support our channel. Please subscribe and hit the like button. Your support is incredibly important for us to continue bringing you insightful content like this. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global audience. The narrative surrounding immigration in the United States is undergoing a significant transformation. Historically, Mexico has been the predominant source of immigrants, both documented and undocumented. However, recent data indicates a diversification in the origins of those seeking a new life in the U.S. While Mexico remains the leading country, nations such as El Salvador, India, and Guatemala are rapidly increasing their numbers, reflecting broader global economic and political shifts. This evolving pattern challenges long-held perceptions and necessitates a closer look at the specific circumstances in each contributing country. Why are individuals and families from these diverse nations embarking on often perilous journeys to the U.S.? Is the primary motivation the pursuit of enhanced economic prospects, often termed the American dream? Or are they fleeing dire situations, including violence, political instability, or environmental crises? The motivations are complex and multifaceted, varying significantly from one region to another. As we proceed, we will unpack the stories behind the statistics, exploring the push and pull factors that shape these migration flows. The list of the top 15 countries sending undocumented immigrants might contain entries that defy common expectations, highlighting the global reach of migration trends affecting the United States today. Understanding these dynamics is essential for informed discussions about immigration policy and its impact on both the immigrants and the host country. Please make sure to watch this video until the end, as we will be summarizing the key findings and offering concluding thoughts on this complex issue. Let's begin our countdown, starting with number 15, Nigeria. Nigeria stands as a vibrant nation situated on the western coast of Africa. It's renowned for its rich cultural heritage and incredibly diverse population, making it the most populous country on the continent, with over 200 million people calling it home. This demographic giant boasts abundant natural resources, most notably oil, which plays a significant role in its economy. However, despite this wealth and resources, Nigeria grapples with substantial challenges. Political instability has been a recurring theme, hindering consistent development and fostering uncertainty. Corruption remains a pervasive issue, diverting resources and undermining public trust. Furthermore, significant economic disparity persists, with wealth concentrated in certain sectors and regions, leaving large segments of the population struggling. These interconnected issues, political volatility, corruption, and economic inequality, create a difficult environment for many Nigerians. Consequently, a considerable number of citizens seek better opportunities and a more stable life elsewhere. This pursuit leads many to look abroad, including towards the United States, in search of improved living conditions, access to quality education, and stable employment prospects. In recent years, there has been a noticeable increase in the number of Nigerian immigrants arriving in the U.S. Their journey, however, is often fraught with difficulties. Navigating the complexities of U.S. immigration policies presents significant hurdles. Additionally, integrating into a new culture, adapting to different social norms, and overcoming potential language barriers add layers of challenge to their resettlement process. Nevertheless, the United States has recognized the valuable contributions of Nigerian immigrants. They frequently bring sought-after skills, diverse perspectives, and a strong work ethic, enriching American society and contributing to its cultural mosaic. Their presence adds to the dynamic fabric of the nation, even as they navigate the often arduous path of establishing a new life far from their homeland. The story of Nigerian immigration reflects a broader global pattern where push factors in the country of origin intersect with the perceived pull factors of the destination country, creating complex and evolving migration flows. Moving to number 14 on our list, we find Peru. Nestled in the heart of South America, Peru is a country celebrated for its breathtaking landscapes, which span from the towering Andes Mountains to the lush expanse of the Amazon rainforest. Its rich history is equally captivating, marked by ancient civilizations like the Incas, who left behind iconic sites such as the world-renowned Machu Picchu. This historical depth and natural beauty make Peru a unique and culturally significant nation. However, beneath the surface of its natural splendor and cultural wealth, Peru contends with persistent struggles. Economic inequality remains a significant issue, creating disparities in wealth and opportunity across its population. Political unrest also frequently surfaces, contributing to an environment of uncertainty and instability. These factors, economic disparity and political turmoil, collectively contribute to the migration of Peruvians seeking a more stable and prosperous existence elsewhere. The United States often emerges as a desirable destination for those looking to improve their circumstances and provide a better future for their families. Many Peruvian immigrants are drawn to the U.S. by the promise of greater economic opportunities and the chance for upward mobility that may seem elusive in their home country. Over the years, the U.S. has witnessed a steady influx of Peruvian immigrants. These individuals often integrate into communities across the nation, bringing with them their unique traditions, cultural richness, and distinct culinary delights, adding another thread to the diverse tapestry of American society. They contribute to various sectors, enriching the workforce and cultural landscape. However, like many immigrant groups arriving in the U.S., Peruvians encounter significant challenges. They must navigate the often complex and demanding U.S. immigration system, facing hurdles related to legal status and documentation. Furthermore, the process of integration into a new culture involves adapting to unfamiliar social norms, overcoming language barriers, and finding their place within American communities. The journey for Peruvian immigrants, while driven by hope for a better future, is frequently marked by these substantial obstacles that require resilience and determination to overcome. Their story highlights the intricate interplay of push factors from their homeland and the perceived pull factors of the United States. Next, at number 13, we explore Colombia. Located at the northern tip of South America, Colombia is globally recognized for its high-quality coffee, vibrant cultural expressions, and stunning biodiversity, ranging from Caribbean coastlines to Andean peaks and Amazonian jungles. In recent decades, Colombia has made significant strides in overcoming a long and troubled history marked by internal conflict and violence. Progress has been made towards peace and stability, yet challenges undeniably remain. Economic disparities continue to affect the population, with wealth and opportunities unevenly distributed. Security concerns, though diminished in some areas compared to the past, still persist, impacting daily life for many Colombians. These enduring economic inequalities and security issues continue to drive a significant number of Colombians to seek opportunities outside their homeland. The United States frequently features as a primary destination for those pursuing a more secure and economically stable future. Colombian immigrants often arrive in the U.S. with hopes of escaping the lingering effects of violence and finding reliable economic stability that might be lacking back home. They are motivated by the prospect of better job opportunities, higher wages, and a safer environment for themselves and their families. The U.S. government has acknowledged the complex situation within Colombia, recognizing the factors pushing immigration. At times, policies such as Temporary Protected Status, TPS, have been implemented, offering a temporary haven for Colombians fleeing particularly dire circumstances, although eligibility and duration can be subject to change based on evolving conditions and policies. Colombian immigrants contribute significantly to the cultural and economic fabric of the United States. They bring with them a rich heritage, a strong work ethic, and diverse skills that benefit various sectors of American society. However, their journey is not without obstacles. Like many immigrant groups, they face the challenges of navigating the intricate U.S. immigration system, dealing with legal status complexities, and overcoming potential language barriers as they strive to integrate and build new lives in America. Their experiences underscore the push and pull dynamics inherent in international migration, driven by both conditions in their country of origin and the perceived opportunities in the destination nation. At number 12, we turn our attention to the Dominican Republic. This Caribbean nation shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti and has a long, complex history of emigration to the United States. This migration trend is primarily rooted in a combination of economic and political factors that have shaped the country over decades. Looking back, the era under the dictator Rafael Trujillo, who ruled from 1930 to 1961, severely restricted the ability of Dominicans to leave the country. His authoritarian regime maintained tight control over movement. However, his assassination in 1961 marked a turning point, leading to significant political upheaval and opening the doors for emigration. The political unrest and economic challenges that followed Trujillo's death, compounded by the United States military intervention in 1965, created a climate of instability. These conditions led many urban professionals and members of the middle class to seek better opportunities and a more predictable environment abroad. The United States, with its proximity and perceived economic promise, became a primary destination. Fast forward to the present day, and the Dominican diaspora in the U.S. is substantial. Current estimates suggest that about 3/4 of all Dominican migrants living worldwide reside in the United States. A large concentration of this population has settled in New York City, particularly in neighborhoods like Washington Heights, creating vibrant communities that maintain strong cultural ties to their homeland. According to recent data, around 164,000 Dominicans in the U.S. were estimated to be unauthorized immigrants. This figure represents approximately 1% of the total unauthorized immigrant population in the country. Interestingly, despite the presence of unauthorized individuals, Dominican immigrants, as a group, tend to have higher rates of enrollment in public health insurance programs compared to other foreign-born populations. This higher insurance coverage rate might explain why, in 2022, only 13% of Dominican immigrants were reported as uninsured, a figure notably lower than the average for all immigrant groups. This suggests a degree of successful integration into certain aspects of the U.S. social safety net, even amidst the challenges faced by the community, including those related to legal status and economic stability. Now, let's consider number 11, Vietnam. The story of Vietnamese immigration to the United States is deeply intertwined with the tumultuous events of the 20th century, particularly the Vietnam War. The roots of this migration wave can be traced back to the aftermath of the conflict. A pivotal moment occurred on April 30, 1975, with the fall of Saigon, which marked the end of the war and the reunification of Vietnam under communist rule. This event triggered a significant exodus of Vietnamese individuals seeking refuge from the new political regime. Many feared persecution due to their association with the former South Vietnamese government, or with the United States during the war. Initially, the vast majority of Vietnamese arriving in the U.S. came as refugees, fleeing political instability and seeking asylum. They arrived in several waves, including the initial evacuation following the fall of Saigon, and later waves of boat people who undertook perilous journeys by sea. However, the nature of Vietnamese immigration has evolved over time. Nowadays, family reunification has become the predominant channel for legal immigration. Current statistics indicate that about 87% of new Vietnamese lawful permanent residents gain their status through family-sponsored preferences, highlighting the importance of existing family networks in the U.S. for facilitating further migration. This shift reflects a maturation of the Vietnamese diaspora in the United States. Many who arrived as refugees have established lives, become citizens, and are now sponsoring relatives to join them. Interestingly, data reveals some unique characteristics of the Vietnamese immigrant population. While they might report, on average, lower levels of formal educational attainment and English proficiency compared to the overall U.S.-born population, they tend to exhibit strong economic integration in other ways. Vietnamese immigrants often demonstrate higher median household incomes than both the overall immigrant population and the U.S.-born population. This suggests a high level of workforce participation and economic resilience within the community. In terms of unauthorized immigration, the numbers are relatively smaller compared to other groups. As of 2021, there were approximately 76,000 Vietnamese immigrants living in the U.S. without legal status, representing a small fraction of the total unauthorized population. Health-wise, Vietnamese immigrants generally fare well regarding insurance coverage. Only about 7% were reported as lacking health insurance in 2022, a rate significantly lower than the 18% average for all immigrants, indicating relatively good access to health care, potentially through employment or public programs. Coming in at number 10 is Cuba. Cuban immigration to the United States presents a unique narrative shaped by a complex interplay of economic factors and deeply entrenched political motivations. The relationship between Cuba and the U.S. has been fraught with tension for over a century, dating back to the early 19th century. The U.S. even made attempts to purchase Cuba from Spain in the mid-1800s, highlighting its long-standing interest in the island. Following the Treaty of Paris in 1898, which ended the Spanish-American War, the U.S. gained temporary control over Cuba, further solidifying the connection, albeit a complicated one, between the two nations. Over the ensuing decades, deteriorating relations, first with Spain and later, most significantly, with the rise of the communist regime under Fidel Castro following the Cuban Revolution in 1959, prompted large waves of Cubans to seek refuge in the United States. Political persecution, lack of freedoms, and economic hardship under the communist government became major push factors. The U.S., particularly due to its geographic proximity and political stance against the Castro regime, became the primary destination for Cubans fleeing the island. Today, Cubans represent one of the largest Caribbean immigrant groups in the United States. A significant concentration of the Cuban-American population resides in the Miami area of Florida, creating a distinct and influential cultural and political enclave. The journey for many Cubans has been perilous, often involving dangerous sea crossings. Specific U.S. policies, like the now-defunct Wet Foot, Dry Foot policy and the Cuban Adjustment Act of 1966, have historically provided unique pathways to legal status for Cubans reaching U.S. soil, differentiating their experience from that of many other immigrant groups. However, recent policy changes and increased enforcement have made the journey and the process of gaining legal entry more challenging. Programs like the CHNV, Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, parole program have been introduced to facilitate lawful entry for nationals from these countries, aiming to provide a legal pathway and deter risky land migration attempts through the U.S.-Mexico border. As of recent estimates, this program has allowed the lawful entry of over 530,000 individuals from these four nations combined. Despite the historical context and specific policies, Cuban immigrants, like other groups, face challenges related to integration, economic stability, and navigating the complexities of life in a new country. Nevertheless, they continue to play a vital role in the diverse fabric of U.S. society, particularly in Florida, contributing culturally, economically, and politically. At number 9, we examine Ecuador. Ecuadorians have been migrating to the United States for a considerable period, driven by a confluence of factors that make life challenging in their homeland. Economic hardship stands out as a primary motivator. Many families, particularly those hailing from rural regions like the El Cantón Cañar province in the southern Andes, grapple with persistent poverty, shortages of arable land, and discrimination, especially impacting indigenous communities. In these areas, ancestral land is often divided into plots too small, minifundios, to adequately sustain a family through agriculture alone. This fragmentation, coupled with limited non-agricultural job opportunities, leaves many with few prospects for achieving a decent livelihood within Ecuador. This economic pressure pushes individuals and families to seek better prospects abroad, with the United States being a prime destination due to the perception of greater economic opportunity and higher potential wages. In recent years, the situation in Ecuador has become increasingly dire, exacerbating migration trends. Since 2021, an estimated 430,000 Ecuadorians have left the country. This recent surge is largely attributed to escalating violence and a pervasive sense of insecurity, alongside continued economic pressures. Organized crime and gang activity have increased, making daily life unsafe for many citizens. This current crisis, marked by both violence and economic instability, has intensified the push factors, compelling more Ecuadorians to undertake the journey north. The journey itself, however, is fraught with peril. Migrants often rely on intermediaries, known colloquially as coyotes, or document forgers to facilitate their clandestine passage, primarily through Central America and Mexico to the U.S. border. This route is dangerous, exposing migrants to risks of extortion, violence, kidnapping, and harsh environmental conditions. Despite these dangers, many feel they have no alternative but to leave in search of safety and economic stability. Once in the United States, Ecuadorian immigrants often settle in established communities, with New York City hosting a particularly large Ecuadorian population. As of 2021, estimates indicated there were over 481,000 Ecuadorians residing in the U.S., with a significant concentration found in the New York metropolitan area. This diaspora is divided between those born in Ecuador and those born in the U.S. who identify with Ecuadorian ancestry. Their presence contributes to the cultural and economic landscape of the U.S., even as they navigate the complexities of immigration status and integration. Number 8 on our list is Brazil. Brazilian immigration to the United States gained momentum significantly in the 1980s. This increase was largely fueled by economic turmoil within Brazil during that period. The term economic refugees accurately describes many of these immigrants who were seeking refuge from severe economic instability, primarily hyperinflation, which plagued Brazil until the mid-1990s. The Plano Real, introduced in 1994, eventually stabilized the currency, but the preceding years of economic chaos had already established a pattern of emigration. During the period of hyperinflation, the cost of living skyrocketed, making daily life incredibly difficult for Brazilian citizens and eroding savings. This economic instability pushed many Brazilians to look abroad for better opportunities, higher wages, and a lower, more predictable cost of living. The United States, with its relatively stable economy and perceived opportunities, became an attractive destination. Many Brazilians arriving knew they could potentially earn substantially more, often cited as up to 4 times as much, in the U.S. for comparable work than they could in Brazil during that challenging economic climate. This significant financial incentive served as a powerful motivator for those aiming to improve their quality of life and support their families back home. Fast forward to today, and while Brazil's economy has seen periods of growth and stability, economic factors remain a significant driver for emigration. Economic crises, downturns, and lack of consistent opportunity continue to encourage Brazilians to seek prospects in the U.S. Once in the United States, Brazilian immigrants tend to settle predominantly in a few key states. Florida, California, Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey are home to the largest Brazilian communities. Florida, in particular, serves as a major hub, hosting a significant portion of the Brazilian diaspora. According to recent estimates, these 5 states collectively house approximately 63% of all Brazilians living in the U.S. The presence of established Brazilian communities in these areas provides crucial support networks for newcomers. These communities offer a sense of familiarity, cultural connection, and practical assistance, helping new immigrants navigate the challenges of adapting to life in a new country, finding work, and accessing resources. This strong community presence makes the transition smoother and reinforces the attractiveness of these specific locations for settlement. Next, at number 7, we have the Philippines. The history of migration from the Philippines to the United States is long and deeply rooted, stretching back to the late 19th century. This enduring connection was initially forged during the period of U.S. colonization of the Philippines, following the Spanish-American War. This colonial relationship established strong political, military, and educational ties between the two nations, laying the groundwork for future migration flows. Initially, much of the migration was driven by labor demands in the U.S. Over the years, particularly in the early to mid-20th century, the demand for workers on Hawaiian sugar plantations and Californian farmlands attracted thousands of Filipino immigrants. These laborers, often known as cicadas, filled roles previously occupied by Japanese workers who were leaving plantation work, establishing an early Filipino presence in U.S. agriculture. Following World War II and subsequent changes in U.S. immigration law, particularly the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which abolished national origin quotas, the nature of Filipino immigration shifted. While labor migration continued, family reunification and professional migration, especially in fields like healthcare, particularly nursing, became increasingly prominent. Today, Filipinos constitute one of the largest immigrant groups in the United States. According to the 2020 census data, there were approximately 4.4 million Filipino Americans, making them a significant and influential diaspora. However, not all individuals of Filipino descent residing in the U.S. possess legal status. Estimates from 2022 suggested there were around 350,000 undocumented Filipino immigrants in the country. This number places them as the fifth largest group of undocumented immigrants, following those from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. The reasons why Filipinos continue to migrate to the U.S., sometimes without authorization, are multifaceted. Push factors from the Philippines include limited educational and economic opportunities in certain sectors or regions, inadequate medical facilities in some areas, and relatively high crime rates contributing to safety concerns. These challenges drive many to seek what they perceive as a better life abroad. On the pull side, the United States offers more robust educational and healthcare systems, perceived greater economic opportunities, higher wages in many professions, and the promise of a higher overall standard of living. Furthermore, the extensive existing Filipino-American community provides strong social networks and family reunification pathways, making the U.S. an appealing and accessible destination for many. Historically, Filipinos have faced their share of challenges and discrimination in the U.S., similar to other Asian immigrant groups, including targeted legislation in the past. Despite these hurdles, Filipino Americans have made significant contributions to American society, notably in the labor movement, military service, including veterans of World War II, healthcare, and various other professional fields. They remain a vital part of the U.S. immigrant mosaic, navigating the complexities of immigration policy while maintaining strong cultural ties to their homeland. Number 6 brings us to China. China is another major source country for immigrants to the United States, with a migration history that extends back to the mid-1800s. The initial waves of Chinese immigrants were largely drawn by the California gold rush and subsequent opportunities in industries like railroad construction and agriculture. However, these early immigrants faced severe discrimination and hostility, culminating in explicitly racist legislation like the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. This act was the first significant U.S. law to restrict immigration based explicitly on nationality, barring Chinese laborers from entering the country and preventing those already present from becoming citizens. It remained in effect in various forms until 1943. Despite this history of exclusion, the flow of Chinese immigrants has continued, driven by evolving push and pull factors. In modern times, China's rapid economic development has lifted millions out of poverty, yet it has also created significant social and economic disparities. Issues such as environmental pollution, particularly air quality problems in major cities, limited personal and political freedoms under the Communist Party's rule, and an intensely competitive job market act as push factors. encouraging some Chinese nationals to seek opportunities elsewhere. The United States, with its reputation for personal freedom, technological innovation, and educational excellence, remains a powerful draw. The U.S. is home to many of the world's leading universities, and educational opportunity is a major pull factor. Chinese students consistently make up one of the largest groups of international students in American higher education institutions, and many choose to remain in the U.S. after completing their studies, seeking professional opportunities through pathways like H-1B visas or eventually permanent residency. Family reunification also plays a significant role, as established Chinese immigrants sponsor relatives to join them. As of 2023, Chinese immigrants represented a significant portion of the overall U.S. immigrant population, ranking among the top source countries, typically following Mexico and India. While precise numbers of undocumented Chinese immigrants are harder to ascertain than for some other groups due to different migration patterns, often involving visa overstays rather than border crossings, they still constitute a notable segment. The journey for undocumented Chinese migrants can be complex and costly, sometimes involving intricate travel routes through multiple countries to reach the U.S. border or relying on fraudulent visa applications. Recent geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China have added another layer of complexity to migration dynamics, affecting everything from trade relations to visa policies and potentially influencing the decisions and experiences of Chinese immigrants. Despite historical discrimination and contemporary challenges, Chinese immigrants continue to make substantial contributions to American society across various fields, including technology, academia, business, medicine, and the arts, enriching the American mosaic with their skills, cultural heritage, and entrepreneurial spirit. Holding the fifth position is Honduras. Honduras, a Central American nation, has seen a substantial number of its citizens migrate to the United States over the years, driven by a potent combination of severe challenges within the country. As of 2022, estimates suggested there were approximately 525,000 unauthorized immigrants from Honduras residing in the U.S., making them one of the largest undocumented groups. The factors compelling this migration are multifaceted and deeply rooted. Poverty is rampant in Honduras, ranking it among the poorest countries in Latin America. Lack of economic opportunity, low wages, and high unemployment rates make it extremely difficult for many Hondurans to provide for their families and build a secure future. Violence is another major push factor. Honduras has long struggled with extremely high homicide rates, largely fueled by gang activity, including transnational gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18, and organized crime. Extortion, kidnappings, and general insecurity permeate daily life in many communities, forcing individuals and families to flee for their safety. Political instability and corruption have also plagued the country, undermining trust in institutions and hindering effective governance and development. This lack of stable governance exacerbates the economic and security problems. Furthermore, Honduras is highly vulnerable to natural disasters. Hurricanes, droughts, and floods frequently devastate communities, destroying homes, infrastructure, and livelihoods, particularly impacting agricultural areas. Events like Hurricane Mitch in 1998 and Hurricanes Ida and Iota in 2020 caused widespread destruction and displacement, adding environmental pressure to the existing socio-economic and security crises. The impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic further strained the already fragile economy and healthcare system, worsening conditions for many. Faced with this complex web of poverty, violence, instability, and environmental vulnerability, many Hondurans see migration, particularly to the United States, as their only viable option for survival and a chance at a better future. The journey north is incredibly dangerous. Migrants face treacherous travel conditions, often traversing difficult terrain and relying on smugglers, coyotes. They are highly vulnerable to exploitation, robbery, assault, kidnapping by criminal organizations, and harsh treatment from authorities in transit countries and at the U.S. border. Despite these significant risks, the desperate circumstances in Honduras compel many to undertake the perilous journey. The U.S. government recognizes the humanitarian concerns driving this migration and has implemented programs like the Central American Minors (KM) program which aims to provide a safer, legal pathway for eligible children to join parents lawfully residing in the U.S. However, the scale of migration often outpaces the capacity of such programs, and addressing the root causes of migration from Honduras requires comprehensive and coordinated efforts involving the U.S., regional partners, and the Honduran government itself, focusing on economic development, violence reduction, strengthening governance, and climate resilience. At number 4, we find Guatemala. Guatemala, another Central American country neighboring Honduras and El Salvador, is a significant source of migrants heading to the United States. In 2020, estimates placed the number of Guatemalans residing in the U.S. at around 1.3 million, with a substantial portion, potentially more than half according to various sources over time, living without legal status, making them one of the largest undocumented populations. The reasons for this large-scale migration are deeply intertwined with the country's socio-economic and political realities. Guatemala is one of the poorest countries in Latin America, marked by profound inequality. Poverty is particularly concentrated in rural areas and among the large indigenous population, who often face systemic discrimination and marginalization. Lack of access to land, limited job opportunities, and food insecurity are major drivers of emigration. Chronic malnutrition affects a significant percentage of children, particularly in the Western Highlands, a region heavily reliant on subsistence agriculture and a major source of migrants. This region suffers from extreme poverty and limited access to basic services like education and healthcare. Violence and insecurity also contribute significantly to the decision to migrate. While perhaps not reaching the same homicide rates as Honduras or El Salvador at certain times, Guatemala still contends with high levels of crime, gang activity, extortion, and a weak justice system, creating an environment where many do not feel safe. Political instability and corruption have also been persistent problems, hindering development and eroding public trust. Like its neighbors, Guatemala is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and natural disasters. Droughts and intense rainfall affect agricultural production, upon which many rural families depend, further exacerbating poverty and food insecurity. The arduous journey to the U.S. is fraught with danger for Guatemalans, involving similar risks faced by other Central American migrants, including reliance on smugglers, vulnerability to criminal organizations, and harsh conditions. Remittances sent back by Guatemalans working in the U.S. play a crucial role in the Guatemalan economy. These financial inflows often surpass government revenue and traditional export earnings, serving as a vital lifeline for many families and highlighting the economy's dependence on migration. Efforts to manage migration from Guatemala include exploring temporary legal work pathways abroad, which could potentially address labor market needs in destination countries while allowing migrants to remain connected to their home communities. However, the deep-rooted issues of poverty, inequality, violence, and lack of opportunity within Guatemala require long-term, sustainable solutions involving national reforms and international cooperation to create conditions where fewer citizens feel compelled to undertake dangerous, unauthorized migration. Holding the third spot is India. India, a country characterized by its immense population, rich history, and diverse culture, has emerged as a significant source of immigrants to the United States, including a substantial number of those without legal status. While often perceived primarily as a source of highly skilled labor and international students, the dynamics of Indian migration are complex and varied. Economic opportunity is a primary driver. Despite being one of the world's fastest-growing major economies, India still grapples with challenges like high unemployment rates, particularly among youth, underemployment, and significant income inequality. Limited job prospects in certain regions or sectors push many Indians, especially those from states like Punjab and Gujarat, known for higher immigration rates, to seek better-paying jobs and an improved quality of life in countries like the U.S. The perception of the United States as a land of opportunity, where hard work can lead to economic success, remains a powerful pull factor. Educational aspirations also fuel migration. The U.S. boasts many of the world's top universities, attracting a large number of Indian students seeking higher education opportunities, unavailable or highly competitive back home. While many students arrive on legal student visas, some may overstay their visas or seek other means to remain in the country after graduation if they cannot secure employment-based visas, contributing to the undocumented population. Family reunification is another key factor. As the Indian diaspora in the U.S. has grown, established immigrants sponsor relatives to join them, utilizing family-based immigration channels. This creates strong social networks that facilitate further migration. Interestingly, the pathway for undocumented Indian migrants often differs from that of migrants from Latin America. While some do cross the U.S.-Mexico border, a significant number arrive legally on temporary visas, like tourist or student visas, and then overstay, becoming undocumented. Others might attempt entry through the less guarded U.S.-Canada border. These journeys, particularly those involving land border crossings, can be perilous and expensive, often requiring migrants to sell assets or take out substantial loans to pay smugglers or cover travel costs. As of 2022, estimates place the number of undocumented Indian immigrants in the U.S. at around 725,000, making them the third largest group after Mexicans and Salvadorans. This signifies a notable shift in migration patterns, with India surpassing countries like Guatemala and Honduras in the undocumented population rankings according to some recent analyses. This rise reflects the complex interplay of economic pressures in India, the allure of opportunities in the U.S., established social networks, and the varied, sometimes challenging pathways migrants take to reach and remain in the country. At number 2, we examine El Salvador. El Salvador, the smallest country in Central America geographically, holds a significant position in the context of U.S. immigration. It has consistently been one of the top source countries for migrants, both authorized and unauthorized, heading to the United States. The reasons behind this substantial migration flow are deeply rooted in the country's turbulent history and ongoing challenges. Violence and political instability are perhaps the most prominent push factors. El Salvador endured a brutal civil war from 1980 to 1992, which resulted in immense loss of life, displacement, and deep societal scars. While the war officially ended, its legacy continued in the form of widespread gang violence. Transnational gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18, whose origins are partly linked to the deportation of Salvadoran gang members from the U.S. in the 1990s, established strongholds and waged violent turf wars. For years, El Salvador suffered from some of the highest homicide rates in the world, making daily life incredibly dangerous for ordinary citizens. Extortion, threats, and forced recruitment by gangs became commonplace, compelling many to flee for their safety and the safety of their families. Political instability and weak governance have also contributed to the problem, often hindering effective responses to crime and violence. Economic factors play a crucial, intertwined role. El Salvador is one of the poorer countries in Latin America, with limited job opportunities, low wages, and significant inequality. The violence further disrupts economic activity and investment. Many Salvadorans migrate simply to find work and earn enough money to support their families back home. The U.S. is seen as a place where they can find better-paying jobs, even if they are low-skilled positions often shunned by native-born workers. Family ties and reunification are also key drivers. Decades of migration have created a large Salvadoran diaspora in the U.S., primarily concentrated in cities like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Houston, and New York. These established communities provide support networks, and the desire to reunite with family members already living in the U.S. is a strong motivator for migration. Remittances sent by Salvadorans working in the U.S. are absolutely vital to the Salvadoran economy, accounting for a substantial portion of the country's gross domestic product, GDP. This reliance on remittances underscores the economic pressures driving emigration. As of 2022, estimates indicated that Salvadorans constituted the second largest group of undocumented immigrants in the U.S., numbering around 750,000, surpassed only by Mexicans. Recent government crackdowns on gangs in El Salvador have reportedly led to a significant decrease in violence. But the long-term effects on migration patterns and the country's underlying socioeconomic issues remain to be seen. The journey for Salvadoran migrants remains perilous, often involving transit through Guatemala and Mexico, where they face numerous dangers. Finally, holding the #1 position is Mexico. Mexico, sharing a nearly 2,000-mile border with the United States, has historically been, and remains, the single largest source of immigrants to the U.S., both authorized and unauthorized. The deep historical, cultural, and economic ties between the two nations, along with geographic proximity, have fostered migration flows for generations. As of 2023, estimates suggested there were around 10.9 million people living in the U.S. who were born in Mexico. While this represents a massive number, it's crucial to note a significant trend. The overall number of Mexican immigrants residing in the U.S., particularly the undocumented population, has actually been declining since its peak around 2010. Back then, Mexican immigrants accounted for roughly 29% of all immigrants in the U.S. By 2023, that share had decreased to about 23%. Similarly, estimates of the unauthorized Mexican immigrant population have shown a notable decline. In 2022, only 37% of all apprehended illegal immigrants at the border were from Mexico, the smallest share recorded, indicating a shift where more migrants are arriving from other countries, particularly Central America and beyond. Despite this decline, Mexico still accounts for the largest single group of unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. The reasons for migration from Mexico are complex and have evolved. Economic opportunity remains a major driver. While Mexico's economy has grown, significant wage disparities persist between the U.S. and Mexico, particularly for lower-skilled labor. Many Mexicans migrate north seeking higher wages to support their families. Industries like agriculture, construction, hospitality, and services in the U.S. heavily rely on Mexican labor. Family reunification is another powerful factor. Decades of migration have created extensive family and social networks spanning the border. Many Mexicans migrate to join spouses, parents, children, or other relatives already living in the U.S. Safety concerns also play a role, though perhaps less uniformly than in some Central American nations. Certain regions in Mexico suffer from high levels of violence related to drug cartels and organized crime. This insecurity can push people from affected areas to seek safety in the U.S. The declining trend in Mexican migration is attributed to several factors, including demographic shifts within Mexico. A lower birth rate means fewer young people entering the workforce, improved economic opportunities in some parts of Mexico, and potentially stricter U.S. border enforcement. However, the long-standing patterns of circular migration, where individuals might move back and forth between the two countries, continue, albeit potentially altered by current border dynamics. The relationship between the U.S. and Mexico regarding migration is incredibly complex, involving issues of border security, economic interdependence, labor demands, humanitarian concerns, and foreign policy. Mexican immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are deeply integrated into the fabric of American society, contributing significantly to its economy, culture, and communities across the nation. So, what conclusions can we draw from this exploration of the top 15 countries sending undocumented immigrants to the United States? First, it's clear that the face of immigration is indeed changing. While Mexico remains the largest source, its dominance has lessened, and migrants are increasingly arriving from a more diverse range of nations, particularly from Central America, Asia, and even parts of Africa and the Caribbean. This diversification reflects shifting global dynamics. Second, the reasons for migration are rarely simple. They involve a complex interplay of push factors, conditions driving people out of their home countries, and pull factors, perceived opportunities attracting them, to the destination country. Economic hardship, lack of opportunity, poverty, and the desire for a better standard of living are consistently major drivers across almost all regions. However, non-economic factors like violence, gang activity, political instability, corruption, lack of personal freedoms, environmental degradation, and natural disasters are equally, if not more, potent push factors for migrants from many Central American, Caribbean, and some African and Asian nations. Safety and security are paramount concerns forcing many to flee. Third, family reunification and established social networks play a crucial role. Decades of previous migration have created significant diasporas in the U.S., and the desire to join loved ones is a powerful motivator, often facilitated by these existing community ties. Fourth, the journey itself is often perilous and costly, particularly for those undertaking land migration through Central America and Mexico or relying on smugglers. Migrants face immense risks, highlighting their desperation. Fifth, U.S. immigration policies, both historical and contemporary, significantly shape migration flows and the experiences of immigrants. From past exclusion acts to current parole programs and border enforcement strategies, U.S. policy directly impacts who comes, how they come, and what happens when they arrive. Finally, immigrants, regardless of their country of origin or legal status, contribute significantly to the cultural and economic fabric of the United States. They fill labor demands, start businesses, pay taxes, and enrich communities with their diverse traditions and perspectives. Understanding the complex realities of modern migration requires looking beyond simple border narratives and appreciating the diverse origins, motivations, journeys, and contributions of those seeking a new life in the United States. Thank you for watching. We hope this analysis provided valuable insights. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. Hatch U.S. immigration. Migration trends. Global migration. A deep dive into the changing demographics of undocumented immigration to the United States, exploring the top 15 source countries and the complex reasons behind these migration patterns. News National Politics. Russia. Ukraine. News. Geopolitics. Migration. Border crisis. YouTube. Titles. 1. Top 15 countries. Sending migrants to the U.S., the shocking new list. U.S. immigration facts. 2024. 2. Why are they really coming? 15 nations fueling U.S. immigration changes. Border crisis explained. 3. Beyond Mexico. These 15 countries are reshaping U.S. immigration. Undocumented truths. 4. 15 surprising countries on the U.S. immigration list. What's driving them? Global migration analysis. 5. The changing face of U.S. immigration. Top 15 source countries. Revealed. Economic and political drivers. YouTube tags. U.S. immigration, undocumented immigrants, migration trends, top source countries, Mexico migration, Central America migration, Asian migration, economic refugees, political asylum, border crisis, fun info fact, clickbait phrases. 1. You won't believe which tiny country sends more migrants than giant nations. 2. The real reason they risk everything to cross the border. It's not what you think. 3. Is your country on the list? The shocking origins of U.S. migrants revealed. 20. Image prompts. 1. A diverse group of migrants walking along a dusty road near a border fence. 2. Stylized map showing arrows pointing from various countries: Mexico, El Salvador, India, Guatemala, Nigeria, etc., towards the USA. 3. Close-up of a distressed family looking through a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. 4. Flag of Nigeria waving against a backdrop of a bustling, crowded Nigerian street market. 5. Aerial view of Machu Picchu in Peru, symbolizing Peruvian heritage. 6. Protesters clashing with police in a South American city, generic representation of unrest. 7. Flag of Colombia with superimposed images of coffee beans and lush biodiversity. 8. Dominican Republic flag next to a picture of Washington Heights, NYC. 9. Black and white photo of Vietnamese refugees arriving on a boat or plane in the 1970s. 10. Flag of Cuba juxtaposed with an image of migrants on a makeshift raft at sea. 11. Indigenous family in traditional clothing standing in a poor, rural landscape in Ecuador or Guatemala. 12. Brazilian flag waving over a view of Rio de Janeiro or a major Brazilian city. 13. Filipino nurses working in a modern U.S. hospital setting. 14. Flag of China next to a gleaming modern Chinese cityscape, like Shanghai. 15. Honduran migrants, including children, wading through a river or rough terrain. 16. Graph showing the decline of Mexican migration versus the rise from other countries. 17. U.S. Border Patrol vehicle patrolling a desert border area. 18. Split image. One side showing poverty, violence abroad, the other showing opportunity, safety in the U.S. 19. Hands counting U.S. dollar bills, representing remittances. 20. Diverse group of successful immigrants integrated into U.S. society, doctors, business owners, students.